Dagdag kaalaman mga tropa. What is maize? Maize, M-A-Y-Z-Z, maize subs maize from Spanish, maize after Taino. Maize, also known as corn in North American and Australian English, is a cereal grain first domesticated by indigenous peoples in southern Mexico about 10,000 years ago. The leafy stalk of the plant gives rise to inflorescences or tassels which produce pollen and separate ovuliferous inflorescences called ears that when fertilized yield kernels or seeds, which are botanical fruits. The term maize is preferred in formal, scientific, and international usage as the common name because this refers specifically to this one grain whereas corn refers to any principal cereal crop cultivated in a country. For example, in North America and Australia corn is often used for maize but in England and Wales it can refer to wheat or barley, and in Scotland and Ireland to oats. Maize has become a staple food in many parts of the world with the total production of maize surpassing that of wheat or rice. In addition to being consumed directly by humans, often in the form of masa, maize is also used for corn ethanol, animal feed and other maize products, such as cornstarch and corn syrup. The 6 major types of maize are dent corn, flint corn, pod corn, popcorn, flour corn, and sweet corn. Sugar-rich varieties called sweet corn are usually grown for human consumption as kernels while field corn varieties are used for animal feed. Various corn-based human food uses, including grinding into cornmeal or masa, pressing into corn oil, fermentation and distillation into alcoholic beverages like bourbon whiskey, and as feedstocks for the chemical industry. Maize is also used in making ethanol and other biofuels. Maize is widely cultivated throughout the world, and a greater weight of maize is produced each year than any other grain. In 2021, total world production was 1.2 billion tons, 1.2 pinarami ng 109 tons. 1.3 pinarami ng 109 short tons. Maize is the most widely grown grain crop throughout the Americas, with 384 million tons, 378 milyong long tons, 423 milyong short tons grown in the United States alone in 2021. Citation needed. Genetically modified maize made up 85% of the maize planted in the United States in 2009. Subsidies in the United States help to account for its high level of cultivation of maize and its position as the largest producer in the world. Maize is a cultigen, human intervention is required for it to propagate. Whether or not the kernels fall off the cob on their own is a key piece of evidence used in archaeology to distinguish domesticated maize from its naturally propagating teosint ancestor. Genetic evidence can also be used to determine when various lineages split. Most historians believe maize was domesticated in the Tehuacan Valley of Mexico. Recent research in the early 21st century has modified this view somewhat. Scholars now indicate the adjacent Balsas River Valley of south-central Mexico as the center of domestication. An 2002 study by Matsuoka et al. Has demonstrated that rather than the multiple independent domestications model, all maize arose from a single domestication in southern Mexico about 9,000 years ago. The study also demonstrated that the oldest surviving maize types are those of the Mexican highlands. Later, maize spread from this region over the Americas along 2 major paths. This is consistent with a model based on the archaeological record suggesting that maize diversified in the highlands of Mexico before spreading to the lowlands. Archaeologist Dolores Piperno has said, a large corpus of data indicates that maize was dispersed into lower Central America by 7,600 BP, 5,600 BC, and had moved into the inter-Andean valleys of Colombia between 7,000 and 6,000 BP, 5000-4000 BC. Dolores Piperno, The Origins of Plant Cultivation and Domestication in the New World Tropics, Patterns, Process, and New Developments. Since then, even earlier dates have been published. According to a genetic study by the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation, Embryo corn cultivation was introduced in South America from Mexico, in 2 great waves. The first, more than 6,000 years ago, spread through the Andes. Evidence of cultivation in Peru has been found dating to about 6,700 years ago. The second wave, about 2,000 years ago through the lowlands of South America. The earliest maize plants grew only small, 25 mm long, isang in, corn ears, and only one per plant. In Jackson Spilvogel's view, many centuries of artificial selection, rather than the current view that maize was exploited by interplanting with teosint, by the indigenous people of the Americas resulted in the development of maize plants capable of growing several ears per plant, which were usually several centimeters, inches long each. The Olmec and Maya cultivated maize in numerous varieties throughout Mesoamerica. They cooked, ground and processed it through nixtamalization. It was believed that beginning about 2500 BC, the crop spread through much of the Americas. Research of the 21st century has established even earlier dates. The region developed a trade network based on surplus and varieties of maize crops. Citation needed. Mapuches of south-central Chile cultivated maize along with quinoa and potatoes in pre-Hispanic times. However, potato was the staple food of most Mapuches, especially in the southern and coastal, Mapuche, territories where maize did not reach maturity. Before the expansion of the Inca Empire, maize was traded and transported as far south as 40 degrees Labinsham, as in Melanquin, Locker Department. In that location, maize remains were found inside pottery dated 730 dagdagan o bawasan 80 BP and 920 dagdagan o bawasan 60 BP. Probably this maize was brought across the Andes from Chile. The presence of maize in Guaycas Archipelago, 43 degrees 55, as the southernmost outpost of pre-Hispanic agriculture, is reported by early Spanish explorers. However, the Spanish may have misidentified the plant. By at least 1000 BCE, the Olmec had based their calendar, language, myths and worldview with maize at the center of their symbolism. Columbian Exchange. After the arrival of Europeans in 1492, Spanish settlers consumed maize, and explorers and traders carried it back to Europe and introduced it to other countries. Spanish settlers much preferred wheat bread to maize, cassava, or potatoes. Maize flour could not be substituted for wheat for communion bread since in Christian belief only wheat could undergo transubstantiation and be transformed into the body of Christ. Some Spaniards worried that by eating indigenous foods which they did not consider nutritious they would weaken and risk turning into Indians. In the view of Europeans, it was the food they ate, even more than the environment in which they lived, that gave Amerindians and Spaniards both their distinctive physical characteristics and their characteristic personalities. Despite these worries, Spaniards did consume maize. Archaeological evidence from Florida sites indicate they cultivated it as well. Maize spread to the rest of the world because of its ability to grow in diverse climates. It was cultivated in Spain just a few decades after Columbus's voyages and then spread to Italy, West Africa and elsewhere. Widespread cultivation most likely began in southern Spain in 1525, after which it quickly spread to the rest of the Spanish Empire including its territories in Italy, and from there to other Italian states. Maize had many advantages over wheat and barley. It yielded 2.5 times the food energy per unit cultivated area, could be harvested in successive years from the same plot of land, and grew in wildly varying altitudes and climates from relatively dry regions with only 250 mm, 10 in, of annual rainfall to damp regions with over 5,000 mm, 200 in. By the 17th century it was a common peasant food in southwestern Europe, including Portugal, Spain, southern France, and Italy. By the 18th century, it was the chief food of the southern French and Italian peasantry, especially in the form of polenta in Italy. Thank you for watching mga tropa. Please follow and subscribe till next time. Paalam.